heavy. We're going to talk about driving traffic to the site. As this comes up, you'll see a cornfield with some baseball lighting. Field of Dreams reference. If you build it, they will not come. You really need to be working to drive traffic and user experience. To your question, nothing is subjective. Google has core web vitals that measure speed and time on page and depth of navigation, and those are all things that they can subjectively say this user had a good experience, this query was satisfied, and the person ultimately spent a lot of time on the site looking for their ultimate solution, whether it be guitars or the answer to a question or other e-commerce. So I guess I jumped in, but I'm Joe Skibbie with JRS Marketing Communications. I've been running a full-service digital marketing agency since 2009. We work with professional services, hospitality, not-for-profit, e-commerce, and we're going to talk about search engine optimization after you've got a site built, after you've determined the hosting environment, the content management system, et cetera, and now it's time to start marketing it. And we look at SEO as not only online community building, but online lead generation. How are you going to notify people of the existence of your site, the solution that you provide, et cetera? As many brick and mortar enterprises understand quite acutely, just opening your doors isn't enough. You really need to notify people. Let me jump slides. So why is SEO important? I'm not going to read all these statistics, but it's mind-boggling the amount of traffic that's done on PC as well as mobile phones, the way people search and the way that drives consumer behavior, whether it be near me or map searches. Local businesses have a priority when it comes to the geography that they're in. If people are searching near me, obviously global, it's a much more competitive environment in terms of optimizing sites across a much wider geography. Just a couple that stand out. 90% of consumers that use the internet to find a local business. Positive reviews are obviously impactful, and over 50 billion connected devices projected as we look at laptops, tablets, PCs, and home appliances, automobiles, etc., where you're able to access. So that, not including voice search as well. So, and to kind of hammer home my point, 90% of websites get no organic search traffic from Google. So if you don't have a dedicated constituency, a database of rabid advocates, who's going to be visiting your site? You really have to drive that demand. Go ahead. Basic components of SEO, we covered some of them. Domain reservation, do you have your domain reserved for 2 years? Is it 10 years? That's a ranking factor. Content, how long the content is, if there's video. Again, you got to think how you're going to be keeping people on the page, how you keep it interesting, exciting, and answering the questions that they have. And that breaks down into some of the coding where you get into the meta description for the page, subjectively allowing Google to understand what the purpose of the page is, and then kind of content stuffing with alt image tags and other metadata throughout the site. We talk about UX or UI, so the user interface and user experience of a site obviously drives that duration on page. And if your bounce rate is high, meaning that someone is visiting your site and leaving without taking any additional action, then Google's going to see that as a fail for the query that was posited to get that visitor to your site. We're going to talk a lot about off-page SEO. Once the site is built appropriately, once it's structured so that Google can read it, and once the speed is there, you start to look at how we drive traffic, and a lot of that is going to be content-based. That's where you start looking at backlinks from membership organizations or media placements, and then are those individual sources reputable? Every website that you can visit has a domain authority, and that's a ranking ascribed to the reputable nature of that site. Things like LinkedIn and Facebook are in the high 90s. Small business sites are lucky to get out of the 20s. Everything in between in terms of media sources or any referential documents have their own domain authority. And then is the user traffic relevant to your geography? Or are you trying to falsify things with false traffic being steered to your site? Go So I love kings and queens. So, content is king, but marketing is queen and runs the household. I was looking for these marketing related quotes, and Gary Vee is one of the guys that we follow. The best piece of content in the world doesn't close sales, it doesn't drive engagement, and if nobody sees it, it's literally pointless. So, we've had people spend tens of thousands of dollars on video content and then spend nothing on distributing it. That's a shame. That really is. Every piece of content should be repurposed, should be cut up, should be shared wildly, and have its own dedicated marketing plan. And that awareness, that earned media coverage or paid media coverage, is a way to drive traffic back to your site. So this is kind of the gist. I think this is the second to last slide. Again, how do we SEO? Where do we start? How will we engage our customers? Where will we interact with them? And what type of content? So a blog, right? Short form articles, maybe even looking at the customer journey and starting with short attention grabbing articles and evolving into longer form content that answers deeper questions. Videos, very similarly. All of this content can be ascribed to a certain place in the marketing funnel. So anybody who's taken Marketing 101 understands the awareness, evaluation, intent, and purchase. And as you go down that sales journey, you get less and less people through the funnel. So there can be an article that is very attention grabbing and doesn't say much about the product, and that may be engagement one with your client. Now with remarketing and retargeting tactics, anybody who reads that piece of content can now be served a video that answers deeper level questions about the product or service. Now maybe you want to get into some branding or some additional features, and you can make sure that only people who've clicked on or engaged in the first piece of content and second piece of content get that third piece of content. So structurally, if you're incorporating paid ads into that budget, it becomes a way to sharpen that spend. And again, different ways, including traditional print, to drive people to your website. If that's your core action, if you understand your conversion rate, if you understand your cart abandonment rate, you just need more visitors to that site that align with your client personas. And as we always talk, at the beginning of most engagements about strategy, the best customer that can walk through the door or land on your website and ultimately make a purchase, you want to have a description of them so that you can better understand who you're writing and producing content for, who you're potentially targeting in advertising, and who you're ultimately trying to incorporate into your future marketing materials. Okay. So this is the strategy element. We can share these slides or share this link. Anybody who's thinking about starting a website or undertaking a marketing endeavor, this is the strategy document that we use internally at JRS Marcom. It's a 3-page fillable document, but oftentimes we build it out 15, 20 pages long. It's going to cover keywords relevant to your product or service, the geography, any local competition, your short and long form business descriptions, main goals and how they're going to be measured, editorial content and schedule, and then if we're building a web project, we have site mapping on there as well.
Do you want me to pull that up here?
Yeah, what do I have till 7?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because this is the second to last slide, so we'll fly through that. So this we always incorporate into any communications we have with prospects and assign it as homework, right? So if somebody doesn't want to work with us, they still have a document that can be used to strategize around their business and their communications plan. 99% of people we give that document to don't use it, but it's the same internal document we use for all of our strategy development. And what it allows is a central location for cutting and pasting your name, address, and phone, your short and long form descriptions, anytime you open a social profile, anytime you're adding the business to a directory. And it's a real powerful tool that we use every day, and highly recommend anybody who's starting. And I'm sorry, it's a link. You can just click anywhere and scroll down. Annoying pop-ups and a little bit more. Oh,
No?
Should be
Oh,
there you go.
strategy template?
Digital marketing strategy template.
There you go.
So again, I mentioned keywords. This is not, well, part of the research is understanding how people might search for your product and taking that information into Google's keyword planner and entering your website with the geography, with the terms that you think, and then coming up with additional ideas and understanding the search volume around those terms. The difference between classical guitar and rad metal guitar has a measurable volume in terms of search whenever we're talking about a product specific. You want to understand that before you invest in any marketing activities. And doing the keyword research is how you do that. This will impact, again, the structure of how you build your site, the content that you implement and share about your site, and ultimately your ranking. You want to make sure that you're investing in ranking for high volume terms in your geography. It's going to differ the approach if you're, again, global, nationwide, regional, or local, so it's important to know that. And this might be where you come up with competition in each of those different geographies. The business description, we've all started social media profiles. We understand there's a short and a long form description for most of those. Why not make that uniform so that every one that you create is a +1 in terms of your optimization. Ranking, it's name, address, and phone consistency, again, is a ranking factor. Products and services offered, this is not necessarily your entire catalog, but the focus of the marketing effort in particular campaigns you'd want to outline here. There's the local competition we mentioned. Always the most important are goals and goal measurement, not only for us as an agency to make sure that we're meeting those goals, hopefully exceeding, but you as an independent operator, solopreneur, starting your web journey, you want to know why you're doing it. And if you're spending your personal time on it, you need to understand the expected result. If you're paying for that time, you even need to understand that even more. We talked about social bookmarking sites. Is your clients more likely to engage in TikTok or Snapchat or Pinterest, Facebook, etc.? And then the social media map where we talk about who that ideal customer is. And that's everything from the car they drive up in to the number of kids they have to the radio station they may or may not listen to, the clothes they wear, are they brand conscious, are they sports fans? The deeper description you can provide for your client personas, the better you're going to be able to target them with every marketing activity. Again, what and when we're writing, and then the sitemap here at the bottom. Sometimes, we start a whole project and manage everything from the site build to the social media and search engine optimization, video production, etc. So we have a very personal knowledge of every step along that process. Sometimes we walk into a project and they're hesitant to update their website, and we have to work kind of backwards into how it was structured and why. So yeah, I encourage, how many of you are potentially looking to sell things online or start an online business? Absolutely, I would take advantage of this and at least understand what steps you might need to take, and looking into everything from hosting environment, build environment as a beginning part of that strategy.
All right, thanks, Jim.
Yeah, any questions?
We still have some more time in this room.
I have a question.
Yeah.
At what point in this process do you take your competitors' websites and count? Do you do that at the very beginning? Do you get something running and get your own metrics? Do you?
Yeah, so we're on-ramping clients all the time, and understanding their competition and where they're spending and how is a vital piece at the onset of that strategy.
Right at the very beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's just like any one of us can type in, free SEO audit, or spend a couple $100 a month on, advanced tools like Moz or SEMrush, Ahrefs. Those are all kind of SEO ranking tools that provide all of the components of ranking. That information is just as easily available, maybe less in detail, but for the like free SEO audits and whatnot. Just running them side by side, your site versus 1, 2, or 3 competitors gives you a real good idea of where you need to focus your efforts to meet and then exceed your competition.
Alright, so I think what we'll do